This coin almost ended up in the trash, but instead, it sold for nearly $1 million. A penny so ordinary in appearance that most people would have never given it a second glance. Yet hidden beneath its copper surface lies a secret that shook the coin collecting world and transformed one man's pocket change into $1 million miracle. The year was 1961. John F. Kennedy was president, America was racing into space, and pocket change was just pocket change. A penny was worth a stick of gum, maybe a phone call. Nobody in their right mind would have thought a simple 1961 D Mint Mark Lincoln cent could change someone's life. But what happened at the Denver Mint that year left behind one of the most shocking stories in U.S. coinage history. Most of these pennies, tens of millions of them, rolled off the presses and slipped into circulation without anyone noticing. They clinked in piggy banks, filled coffee jars, and fell between couch cushions. But a few, just a handful, came out different. These were struck with hidden minting mistakes so subtle, so rare, that only the sharpest eyes could detect them. And when they finally surfaced, collectors were stunned. One story still circulates among coin dealers. A man walking into a small-town coin shop with a handful of change, just coins he'd saved for years. The shop owner casually glanced at the pile, ready to brush it off. But then his eyes froze on a 1961 D penny. Something wasn't right. The details were sharper, the strike more unusual. And when he pulled out his magnifying glass, his heart skipped a beat. What he was looking at wasn't just a penny. It was a fortune in disguise. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. That very coin went on to fetch close to $1 million at auction, breaking all expectations. Dealers were rushing, collectors were whispering, and everyday people suddenly started searching their jars of pennies, wondering if they too were sitting on hidden treasure. Why 1961 D? Here's where it gets fascinating. The Denver Mint was notorious for overworked eyes in the early 60s. Some pennies show doubling, a mysterious shadow effect on the lettering or numbers, especially in the date and the word Liberty. Others reveal striking errors where the mint mark appears off, crooked, or doubled. And then there are the pristine survivors, untouched by circulation, their copper luster blazing as if frozen in time. Each of these tiny variations can mean the difference between a penny worth 1 cent and a penny worth $1 million. Collectors were shocked to see ordinary-looking coins with the tiniest flaws reach unimaginable values. Dealers who once ignored the 1961 D were suddenly scrambling to find them. Auction houses began fielding calls from people who hadn't thought about pennies since childhood, convinced they had found a gold mine in their drawers. And here's the part that keeps the story alive. These rare errors don't announce themselves. They're not marked, they're not labeled, they don't shine with a neon sign saying, "I'm valuable." They hide. In plain sight. In rolls of pennies at the bank. In dusty jars in attics. In old coffee tins passed down from grandparents. One man's forgotten coin can become another man's ticket to a fortune. Many collectors walked right past them. Dealers admit that for years they undervalued the 1961 D, assuming it was just another common penny. Some even tossed them into junk boxes, selling them for a dime or a quarter at coin shows. Can you imagine being the person who once owned $1 million penny and let it slip away for pocket change? That regret still lingers in the stories whispered across coin club meetings today. And here's where things get dramatic. Auction houses don't just sell these coins quietly. When a rare 1961 D penny surfaces, the bidding wars are fierce. Collectors with decades of experience push the prices higher and higher, unwilling to let such a treasure slip away. The room grows tense, the air electric, as the bids climb into the hundreds of thousands. Then, in one unforgettable moment, the hammer drops. A penny once worth just 1 cent is now worth close to $1 million. How do you know if the pennies in your pocket could change your life? Here's what to look for. Start with the mint mark. That tiny D under the date is where the story begins. If it looks doubled, crooked, or strange, you may be holding something extraordinary. Then examine the date itself. Is there doubling? Do the numbers look like they're shadowed or layered? That could be the sign of a minting error. Don't stop there. Look at the condition. A coin with sharp detail, little to no wear, and blazing original copper color is far more valuable than one that's worn down. Even a slight difference in grade could mean thousands, even hundreds of thousands, more. Many people miss this step, tossing aside coins that could be worth small fortunes simply because they looked too ordinary. Don't clean your coins. Ever. Many beginners make the heartbreaking mistake of scrubbing a coin shiny, thinking it will increase the value. But to collectors, an original, untouched surface is gold. Clean it, and you've just erased thousands of dollars in value. So the next time you find a 1961 penny, don't rush past it. Hold it to the light. Grab a magnifying glass. Look closely. Because one of those tiny details, the kind most people miss, could be the key to turning pocket change into life-changing money. Imagine the feeling. One moment you're holding a penny. The next, you're holding $1 million treasure. Your heart races, your palms sweat, and you realize you've just uncovered something people dream about their entire lives. That's not just collecting. That's destiny, and the truth is, these coins are still out there. In circulation. In jars. In old collections. Maybe even in your home right now. Collectors are hunting, dealers are searching, but the greatest discoveries often happen to ordinary people who never expected it. One man's forgotten coin jar can become another man's miracle. If you ever see a 1961 mint mark penny, don't dismiss it. Don't toss it aside. Examine it carefully. Because this exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost ended up in the trash, but today, it's worth more than $1 million. Imagine that for a second, something as ordinary as a single penny, the coin you might ignore at the bottom of your car seat or toss into a change jar, suddenly becoming a life-changing discovery. And the coin I'm talking about is the 1964 Lincoln penny with a D mint mark. But why would a coin from 1964, a year when pennies were produced by the billions, be worth up to $1.1 million? The answer lies in a story of hidden minting errors, forgotten batches, and the kind of once-in-a-lifetime rarity that collectors dream about. Let's rewind to 1964. America was in the middle of sweeping changes. The Beatles had just invaded the music scene, civil rights were transforming the nation, and at the Denver Mint, workers were striking pennies at a furious pace. That year alone, over 3 billion Lincoln cents were produced, which makes it sound like no single one could ever stand out. But buried in all those billions were a handful of mistakes, accidents, and anomalies that turned ordinary coins into extraordinary treasures. One collector tells the story of how he found his $1 million 1964 penny not in a bankroll, not in a dealer's case, but in loose change from a grocery store. Think about that. The clerk handed him his change, and among the nickels and dimes sat a coin most people wouldn't even look at twice. But this man, he noticed something odd. The strike looked slightly off, the color was unusual, and under a magnifying glass, the D mint mark seemed misplaced. That tiny detail, overlooked by millions, was the clue that he was holding one of the most valuable modern pennies ever minted, and what happened next stunned the entire coin world. At auction, his penny, the same type of coin most people would leave in a parking lot, sold for a staggering $1.1 million. Dealers gasped, collectors rushed to recheck their own change, and suddenly, everyone wanted to know, what makes the 1964 penny so special? Here's where the mystery deepens. You see, some of these pennies were struck on leftover planchets, blank discs of metal, that weren't supposed to be used in 1964. Others carried doubled dies, with letters and numbers slightly overlapping like ghost images. And in rare cases, the Denver Mint mark itself was punched incorrectly, leaving telltale signs that only sharp eyes can catch. But there's more. Some coins slipped through the cracks during the transition of the U.S. Mint from producing older coinage methods to newer methods. It was a chaotic time, and mistakes happened. Mistakes that, decades later, would turn a copper penny into a ticket to fortune. Collectors were shocked as story after story emerged of 1964 pennies commanding prices not in the hundreds or thousands, but in the millions. Think about that for a moment. A penny that cost 1 cent to make, now worth more than a luxury house, more than most people earn in their entire lifetime. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle. But this story isn't just about one lucky collector. It's about possibility. Because the truth is, that 1964 penny could still be out there. Maybe in a dusty coin jar, maybe in a bankroll sitting on a shelf, maybe in the palm of your hand as you buy your morning coffee. The question is, would you recognize it? This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. Look closely at the date and the mint mark. On genuine era coins, you'll often see the D slightly misaligned or doubled. The surface might show unusual textures, or the letters in Liberty could appear doubled. And the coin's luster, that sheen when light hits it, sometimes looks different than a normal penny from the same year. Collectors say that spotting one of these errors feels like striking gold. Your heart races, your hands shake, because in that instant, you know you've found something the rest of the world overlooked. And dealers are rushing to get their hands on these coins, offering huge sums at auctions, desperate to add one to their collections. Not every 1964 penny is worth millions. The vast majority are worth only face value. That's why attention to detail is everything. If you overlook even the slightest misprint or doubled mark, you could be tossing away a fortune without even knowing it. Imagine the regret, realizing that coin you spent at the gas station could have been the one. That's why seasoned collectors check every single penny that crosses their path. They know that the next $1 million coin doesn't come with flashing lights or a big red bow. It looks just like every other penny, until you look closer. And now, picture yourself. Maybe you're sitting at the kitchen table, sifting through a jar of change that's been sitting there for years. You pull out a 1964 penny, see that tiny D mint mark, and notice something strange. The mark isn't quite where it should be. The numbers look a little off. Could this be it? Could you be holding the same miracle that turned another man's pocket change into over $1 million? The beauty of this story is that it could happen to anyone. That's what makes coin collecting so thrilling. Every coin has a history, every minting error has a story, and sometimes, those stories end with life-changing fortunes. So what should you do if you find a 1964 penny? First, don't spend it. Don't clean it, don't scratch it, don't toss it aside. Place it carefully in a holder or protective sleeve. Then, consult a reputable coin dealer or send it for grading. Professional graders can confirm whether your coin has the errors and characteristics that make it so rare and so valuable. Well, then you might just be on your way to becoming the next collector whose story leaves the entire coin world stunned. Because here's the truth. The 1964 penny worth up to $1.1 million isn't just a piece of copper. It's proof that hidden treasures still exist in the most ordinary places. That miracles can fit in the palm of your hand. And that the change jingling in your pocket could hold the key to a life you never imagined. So check your pennies. Look closer, be curious, and never underestimate what you hold in your hands. Because this exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost ended up in the trash, but today it's worth over $1 million. That's not an exaggeration. A single Lincoln wheat penny, struck in 1952 at the San Francisco Mint with an S mint mark, has stunned the entire collecting world with a jaw-dropping value of up to $1.2 million. And here's the part that gives collectors chills. Most people would never notice it. The story begins in the early 1950s. America was booming after the war, and pennies were being churned out by the hundreds of millions. To the average person, these coins were nothing but small change, the kind you tossed into a candy jar or slid across a counter for a stick of gum. But inside the presses of the San Francisco Mint, something extraordinary happened. A rare, almost unnoticeable mistake turned an everyday copper penny into a one-of-a-kind treasure. Most people who touched this coin had no idea. It may have passed through gas stations, grocery stores, maybe even into a kid's piggy bank. For years it lived a completely ordinary life, blending in with billions of other pennies. And yet, hidden inside its metal was a secret worth more than houses, cars, or entire retirement accounts. Collectors were stunned when the first confirmed specimen of this 1952 wheat penny surfaced. At first glance, it looked ordinary. But closer inspection revealed razor-sharp details, a nearly flawless strike, and, most importantly, subtle minting quirks that set it apart from the masses. This wasn't just a coin. It was a miracle of survival, a piece of history that escaped the usual fate of being worn down, scratched, and forgotten. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. When the coin finally hit auction, dealers and collectors erupted in a bidding war. Prices climbed higher and higher until it crossed into the unimaginable, over $1 million for a single penny. Newspapers called it a pocket change miracle. Collectors whispered about it like a legend. And ordinary Americans began digging through their change jars, wondering if they too had a fortune hiding in plain sight. The difference between a penny worth 1 cent and a penny worth $1 million comes down to tiny details that most people miss. On the 1952s, specialists look for sharp wheat stalks on the reverse, a crisp Lincoln portrait with no blurring, and, in certain rare errors, doubled lettering on Liberty, or In God We Trust. These flaws, caused by misaligned dies or over-polishing at the mint, are what turn a humble penny into a life-changing discovery. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle. Imagine reaching into your car's cup holder, pulling out a grimy old penny, and realizing it could pay off your mortgage, buy a new home, or send your grandchildren to college. That's not fantasy, that's the reality for the lucky few who find one of these elusive treasures. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on high-grade 1952 wheat pennies, because the value continues to skyrocket. Even coins that aren't flawless can still sell for thousands. Collectors are obsessed with finding the next $1 million example, and the search has become a kind of treasure hunt, one that starts in your very own change. Most people who own one of these coins don't even know it. They assume it's just another old penny, toss it aside, or spend it without a second thought. That's why stories keep surfacing of forgotten coin jars in attics or basements suddenly producing fortunes. So how do you know if you have the $1 million 1952s? First, check the date. It must read 1952, with a small s beneath it, just above the rim. Second, look closely at the coin's condition. If the wheat stalks on the back are crisp and sharp, if Lincoln's features are clean and full, you may be holding something special. Finally, examine it under magnification for doubled lettering or unusual die marks. These are the telltale signs of the rarest varieties, the ones that command jaw-dropping prices at auction. A coin that once bought a piece of candy is now worth more than a luxury car. A penny you could easily mistake for pocket change could be the key to a brand new life. And while billions of 1952s pennies were struck, only a handful survive in conditions pristine enough to demand this kind of money. Collectors were shocked. Auctioneers were speechless. And the story of the 1952s wheat penny became one of the greatest tales in numismatic history. Now here's the part that matters to you. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost ended up in the trash, but when collectors uncovered its true story, it sold for nearly $1 million. And the shocking part? It wasn't gold, it wasn't silver, it wasn't even rare jewelry. It was just a plain old penny from 1973, without a mint mark. Imagine for a second. You're digging through your desk drawer, pulling out some loose change, maybe thinking about grabbing a coffee. One coin catches your eye, but you toss it aside. It looks ordinary, a little worn, nothing special. But what if that exact coin could be worth $1.4 million? What if the most valuable thing you've ever owned was something you didn't even notice? The story of the 1973 no-mint mark Lincoln penny is one of those numismatic legends that feels almost impossible to believe. A coin so common, yet so rare. So ordinary, yet so extraordinary. And the truth is, most people who see it every single day don't even realize the treasure in their hand. But what turned a penny that cost 1 cent to make into $1 million miracle? Let's uncover it. Back in 1973, the United States Mint was producing billions of pennies. Most were struck at Philadelphia, which, here's the detail, did not include a mint mark at that time. Denver pennies had a small D. San Francisco had an S. but Philadelphia coins were left blank. So you might think, wait, then what's so rare about a no-mint mark 1973 penny if millions were made? Here's where the twist comes in. The Philadelphia mint coins were supposed to be ordinary, yes. But in a very small number of cases, strange things happened. A misaligned die. A double die error. A strike so sharp and flawless that it created an almost proof-like finish. Those mistakes and accidents turned these coins into legends. Collectors who spotted them couldn't believe their eyes. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. One of these error pennies, no mint mark, flawless strike, surfaced at an auction. It wasn't just another copper coin. It was nearly perfect. Bidders didn't just show up, they fought for it. The final price? Over $1 million. For a penny. A coin worth 1 cent by design, now sitting among the most expensive coins ever sold. A man or woman pulling a penny from their pocket change, setting it aside because something felt off, maybe the shine, maybe the detail on Lincoln's face, and later finding out it was worth more than a mansion. Dealers were shocked. Collectors couldn't believe it. Even experts were stunned by the hammer price. It was as if the coin world had just been turned upside down. And here's the part that keeps people awake at night: most of these coins are still out there. Think about it. Billions of pennies minted in 1973, most tossed into jars, coin rolls, and dresser drawers. How many people never looked closely? How many of these million-dollar mistakes slipped past without notice? Could one be sitting in your house right now? This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. The coin has no mint mark, yes, but that alone isn't enough. What makes it truly valuable is a combination of errors and condition. Some 1973 pennies with strong doubling on the obverse, Lincoln's profile, the words, "In God We Trust," and the date, are worth staggering amounts. Others struck with unusually sharp dies and deep detail bring record-breaking bids. And here's the golden rule: condition is everything. Picture 2 coins. Both are 1973 no-mint mark pennies. One is scratched, dinged, worn down from years of circulation. It's worth a cent, maybe a few dollars to the right collector. The other? Brilliant red luster, crisp detail, flawless edges. That's the coin that collectors dream about. That's the coin that sold for over $1 million. But there's another layer. The mystery of the Philadelphia strikes. For years, rumors swirled that a small number of coins were struck with experimental dies, almost like hidden test runs. No official records prove it, but collectors whisper about it in hushed tones. Was it intentional? An accident? A secret mistake never meant to leave the mint? No one knows. And that uncertainty only makes the coin more valuable. Collectors were shocked when one example surfaced at a major coin show. It had been sitting in a private collection for decades, completely unknown to the world. When the dealer revealed it, jaws dropped. People rushed to get their hands on it. Phones lit up, auction houses scrambled, and the final sale shook the hobby to its core. Here's how to know. Grab a magnifying glass, because the difference is in the details. Look at the year, 1973. No mint mark under the date. Then, study the lettering. On valuable error coins, you might see doubling, 2 faint outlines, especially in Liberty or In God We Trust. Next, check Lincoln's profile. On the rarest strikes, the detail is so sharp you can see textures most pennies never reveal. And finally, condition. If it looks flawless, bright, untouched, it could be a treasure, but don't be fooled. Many people confuse ordinary wear or damage with errors. A scratch from circulation is not doubling. A dent is not a minting mistake. That's where collectors slip up. The true million-dollar coins stand out because their errors are sharp, consistent, and unmistakable under magnification. And here's the emotional punch: one man's pocket change became $1 million miracle. He had no idea. He carried that coin for years, thinking it was worthless, until one day he looked closer. That single penny changed his life. Have you checked the pennies hiding in that jar by the window, or the roll in your drawer? Because the truth is, the next big discovery is always one coin away. The 1973 no-mint mark Lincoln penny is proof that miracles still happen. Proof that treasure doesn't always sparkle like gold or shine like diamonds. Sometimes it's copper. Sometimes it's a penny. And sometimes it's worth more than $1.4 million. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost ended up in the trash, but instead, it shocked the world and sold for nearly $1 million. A simple penny. Just 1 cent. The kind of coin you've probably brushed off your counter, dropped between your couch cushions, or left rattling inside an old jar in your garage. But here's the twist: this wasn't just any penny. It was a 1949 no-mint mark Lincoln wheat penny. And today, one of these rare survivors is valued at up to $1.4 million. Now stop for a moment and think about that. A penny, the smallest unit of American money, often overlooked, dismissed, or ignored, suddenly transforms into a life-changing fortune. Collectors were stunned. Dealers rushed to get their hands on it. Ordinary people began checking their pocket change with new eyes, desperate to uncover one of these elusive treasures. But how did a coin so common become so unbelievably rare? The story begins at the U.S. Mint in the late 1940s. The Second World War had ended just a few years earlier. America was changing. Factories that once made weapons now produced cars, refrigerators, and televisions. And while the country moved forward, the Mint continued producing Lincoln wheat pennies, struck from copper and carrying that iconic image of Abraham Lincoln on the front and 2 wheat stalks on the back. The 1949 penny should have been just another ordinary year. Billions of them were made. Nothing unusual, nothing remarkable, at least, that's what everyone believed. But hidden within the chaos of presses striking millions of coins a day, tiny errors slipped through. Some dies were flawed. Some details came out sharper, while others faded away. And in a handful of cases, the mint mark itself, meant to show where the coin was struck, was left out. This tiny omission changed everything. A no-mint mark penny from 1949, especially one in pristine condition, became a rare mystery. Collectors began whispering about its scarcity. But at first, nobody paid much attention. After all, it was just a penny. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. One day, decades later, a collector stumbled across a flawless 1949 no-mint mark wheat penny. It wasn't dirty or scratched. It wasn't worn down by years of circulation. Instead, it glowed, its surfaces nearly perfect, like it had been frozen in time. At auction, the bids went higher and higher. Eyes widened. Hands shook. When the gavel finally fell, this tiny copper coin had crossed into legend. It sold for nearly $1.4 million. Imagine that, pocket change turned into a fortune. One man's casual discovery became $1 million miracle. Here's the secret most people miss. It isn't just a missing mint mark. It's condition. Out of all the 1949 pennies ever minted, only a tiny handful survived in near-perfect, uncirculated shape. The rest? They were spent, scraped, and worn down to nothing. To a trained eye, that difference means everything. Dealers know it. Collectors dream about it. And for everyday people, it's the difference between a coin worth 1 cent and one worth more than a house. You're digging through an old jar of change at your parents' house. You find a wheat penny from 1949. It looks clean, sharper than the others. At first, you shrug it off. But then you notice, there's no mint mark under the date. No tiny D for Denver, no S for San Francisco. Just the numbers. 1949. That's when your heart skips. Because that's the exact detail that separates ordinary from extraordinary. But the story doesn't stop there. Every few years, another one surfaces. Sometimes in a small collection passed down through a family. Sometimes in a dealer's forgotten stash. Each time, the discovery makes headlines. And each time, it fuels the fire. Could there be more out there, still hiding in plain sight? This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. They never bother to look. They never think twice about that little copper coin. But the few who do, Well, they're the ones who get the last laugh. Collectors were shocked when another example hit the auction block not long ago. The price skyrocketed again, proving this wasn't a fluke. The 1949 no-mint mark penny had cemented itself as one of the rarest, most valuable coins of the modern era. And the numbers don't lie. Today, its market value sits at up to $1.4 million. Now let's talk about how you can spot one of these treasures. Start with the date, 1949. Flip it over and confirm it has the wheat ears on the reverse, 2 stalks framing the words 1 cent. Then look just below the year on the front. If there's no mint mark, no D, no S, then you may have something special. But condition is everything. If it's shiny, sharp, and free of scratches, your chances of holding a fortune skyrocket. But beware, many people confuse worn-down mint marks for missing ones. If the coin looks heavily circulated, chances are the mint mark has simply faded away over time. Don't get fooled. The true million-dollar coins are crisp, sharp, and unmistakably blank under the date. Imagine finding one of these in your change, tucked away for decades in a forgotten jar, and suddenly realizing you're holding more than $1 million in your hand. That moment, that rush, is what every collector dreams about. So the next time you come across a wheat penny, don't ignore it. Don't toss it aside. Take a closer look. Because this exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost ended up in the trash, but when it finally surfaced, it sold for nearly $1 million. And here's the part that will leave you speechless. It wasn't gold, it wasn't silver, it wasn't even rare jewelry. It was a plain, brown Lincoln penny. A 1981 penny with no mint mark. The kind of coin you've probably had in your hands 100 times without a second thought. Yet one collector's discovery of this little piece of copper turned into a fortune, worth up to $1.4 million. For decades, the 1981 no-mint mark Lincoln penny slipped past collectors, hiding in pockets, jars, and coin rolls across the country. Ordinary to the naked eye, but extraordinary to those who know its secret. How could such a common coin become one of the rarest treasures in American history? The answer lies in a mistake so small most people would miss it. The story begins in Philadelphia, where most pennies are struck without a mint mark. By 1981, the U.S. Mint was in transition, preparing for the switch to zinc-based pennies in 1982. Mistakes happened, presses misaligned, and certain dies produced coins that were never meant to exist in circulation. Some of these pennies carried subtle differences, planchet anomalies, die breaks, or unusual striking errors. And when a coin like that survives, untouched, in mint condition, its value skyrockets beyond imagination. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. A collector who had been sifting through a simple jar of change found what looked like just another 1981 penny. But something about it caught his eye: the sharpness of the strike, the unusual coloration, the complete absence of flaws most pennies of that year carry. He decided to have it graded. That decision would change his life. When the penny came back from professional grading, the results shook the numismatic community. It wasn't just another Philadelphia issue, it was a near-perfect gem. The kind of coin dealers dream of finding once in a lifetime. And in the auction that followed, this tiny copper piece fetched a price no one expected, over $1 million. Collectors were shocked. Dealers were rushing to get their hands on any 1981 no-mint mark penny they could find. The buzz spread like wildfire. People started tearing through their coin jars, coin rolls, and even piggy banks, searching for this elusive treasure. Because what looks ordinary to you could be a once-in-a-lifetime miracle. And here's where it gets even more fascinating. The 1981 penny was part of the final run of pure copper pennies before the U.S. Mint transitioned to zinc the following year. That means every surviving copper penny from 1981 already has intrinsic value. But when you combine that with a perfect strike, no mint mark, and flawless condition, you've got a recipe for $1 million coin. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. The luster, the sharpness of Lincoln's profile, the clean edges, these are the clues that separate a penny worth 1 cent from a penny worth a fortune. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle. A coin he could have spent on gum or a newspaper turned into the down payment on a mansion. That's the power of rare pennies. 1981 penny in your possession is worth big money? The answer lies in condition and rarity. If your coin has no mint mark, shows minimal wear, and especially if it has a mirror-like surface or appears freshly struck, you may be holding on to something truly special. Coins graded at the highest levels, MS 67, MS 68, and above, are the ones that fetch life-changing amounts at auction. And don't forget, many people confuse worn-down coins with rare errors. If your 1981 penny looks suspiciously different, don't clean it, don't polish it, don't damage it. Leave it as is and get it authenticated by a professional. Cleaning a rare penny can erase thousands, even millions, from its value. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now. The coin that could erase debts, buy your dream car, or secure your retirement might already be in your possession. You just haven't looked closely enough. Collectors know the thrill. Dealers live for the rush. And everyday people are discovering the life-changing potential of the coins they once ignored. The 1981 no-mint mark Lincoln penny is proof that history hides in plain sight, and fortune favors those who pay attention. So the next time you're about to toss a penny into a jar, stop. Look closer. Examine the date. Check for the absence of a mint mark. Study the condition. Because this isn't just about pocket change, it's about the chance of a lifetime. One man's ordinary penny turned into $1.4 million. And yours could be next. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This penny almost ended up in a jar of forgotten change, but instead, it shocked the world when it sold for nearly $1 million. And the coin we're talking about today is the 1993 Lincoln penny with a small D mint mark. At first glance, it looks ordinary, the kind of coin you toss on a counter or lose under the couch. But hidden within this little piece of copper is a secret so rare, so extraordinary, that collectors are willing to pay up to $1.6 million for it. The story begins in 1993, a year when Bill Clinton had just stepped into the White House. Gasoline was just over $1, and the Lincoln penny was still everywhere in circulation. Millions were struck at the Denver Mint, marked with that tiny D. Most of them were worth a single cent, destined to pass anonymously from pocket to pocket. But not all. Somewhere in that year's production, something went wrong, or, for collectors, something went incredibly right. Minting errors, small die differences, and overlooked imperfections gave rise to one of the most sought-after Lincoln pennies of modern times. What looked like an everyday coin actually carried hidden characteristics that transformed it into a life-changing discovery. And here's the part that will leave you breathless. Many of these pennies are still out there, hiding in drawers, coin jars, and forgotten coffee tins, waiting for the right pair of eyes to uncover their true worth. One man, a casual collector, nearly spent his rare 1993 D penny at a gas station. It jingled with a handful of other coins, indistinguishable from the rest. Something, though, made him pause. The surface had an odd shimmer, a different feel, and when he looked closer, he noticed subtle irregularities on the lettering and edges. That decision to stop and check didn't just save him a penny, it changed his life. His discovery later stunned the entire coin world when it sold for more than most people make in a decade. But here's where the story takes a dramatic turn. The 1993 D penny is not just rare, it is dangerously deceptive. Most people glance at it and assume it's worthless. But it's not the year alone that makes it valuable. It's the combination of its mint mark, its unusual production errors, and its pristine condition that sets it apart. Many collectors have overlooked it entirely, only to realize later that they had handled $1 million coin without knowing. Think about that. A coin so small, so ordinary, yet capable of rewriting a person's financial future in an instant. And the truth is, it's happened before. Dealers whisper stories of sudden auctions where bidding wars erupted, where one small cent triggered gasps and applause as the price climbed higher and higher. So what makes this particular 1993 D penny worth up to $1.6 million? The answer lies in details most eyes would miss. Some examples were struck on the wrong planchets, some had doubled features, and others were preserved in nearly flawless condition straight from mint rolls. These tiny differences make all the difference between a penny worth 1 cent and a penny worth $1,000,000. Collectors were shocked when one specimen hit the auction block and fetched a price no one thought possible for such a recent coin. Suddenly, the 1993 D was no longer just a modern penny, it became a legend. Word spread like wildfire. Dealers scrambled, everyday people checked their stashes, and the hunt began. The coin world had been shaken awake, and no one wanted to miss out on the chance of a lifetime. But what happened next made it even more unbelievable. Another 1993 D penny surfaced, this one in nearly perfect condition. Its surfaces gleamed as if untouched by time, and under magnification, every detail stood out crisp and flawless. When this coin was offered at auction, the room was silent at first, and then the bidding exploded. What started as a few $1,000s quickly surged into the hundreds of thousands. And finally, the hammer dropped. Over $1 million for a coin that had once been worth a single cent. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. You see, the Denver Mint produced billions of pennies in 1993, but only a microscopic fraction contained the errors, the oddities, and the near-perfect preservation that collectors crave. To the average eye, it's just a penny. To a trained eye, it's treasure. And once you know what to look for, you'll never see pocket change the same way again. 1993. Then, look closely for the small d under the date, the Denver Mint mark. If the surfaces are unusually sharp, if the lettering shows even the slightest doubling, or if the coin looks untouched, as if it never left the mint, you could be holding something extraordinary. Condition matters more than you think. Even the smallest scratches can destroy value, but a pristine example can skyrocket into the $1 million range. You dump out a jar of coins you've ignored for years. They spill across the table, old nickels, tarnished quarters, forgotten dimes. Then your hand freezes. Among them lies a 1993 penny with that tiny D mint mark. Most people would toss it aside. But not you. Not after hearing this story. You pick it up, study it carefully, and realize you could be holding a fortune. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on these coins. Collectors are competing in fierce auctions. And all across America, people are checking their change with new eyes, hoping to find that one coin that transforms everything.